Have you ever wondered why some people just seem to dominate under pressure, while others completely crumble? What is it that separates an elite operator from everyone else? Well, I can tell you, it's not about motivation or just hustling harder. No, it's about the mental physics of making decisions when you have no idea what's going to happen. Let's break that down. All right, so here's how we're going to deconstruct this elite mindset. First, we're going to isolate the core signal, the one thing they focus on. Then we'll look at the pattern this creates and how they think, and see how that actually plays out in the real world. We'll also cover the huge price you pay for ignoring this. And finally, we'll define the massive competitive edge it gives you, and then we'll turn the lens on ourselves with a few really critical questions.
Okay, let's get right to the heart of it, the core signal. Here's the fundamental and kind of counterintuitive truth. Elite performers are obsessed with the quality of their bets, not the outcome of any single one.
And this is where you see two totally different games being played. See, most people are playing an emotional game. The goal is to feel right, to avoid that sting of failure, right? But the elite mind, they're playing a statistical game. They know the world is uncertain, so their entire focus shifts to one thing: making the best possible bet with the information they have. They're not managing their emotions, they're managing probabilities.
Now this core signal, this idea, it doesn't just exist in a vacuum. It actually shows up as a really clear, repeatable pattern of thinking that you see across all kinds of high-stakes fields. We're talking from founding a company to competing at the absolute highest levels.
So this way of thinking, it really breaks down into a three-step pattern. Step 1, they manage risk, not fear. Step 2, they separate data from their identity. And Step 3, they always prioritize the long game. So let's dig into each one of these, starting with how winners handle risk. You see, what high performers get really good at is telling the difference between the emotional feeling of fear, which, let's be honest, almost always exaggerates the downside, and the cold, hard statistical reality of risk. By pulling those two apart, they can make much calmer, more calculated decisions based on what's likely to happen, not just on what feels uncomfortable.
And this right here, this sums up that first pattern perfectly. The goal isn't to feel safe. It's not to get rid of anxiety. The goal is to make good bets, especially when it feels uncomfortable. It's a total reframe of the objective, away from emotional comfort and toward a statistical advantage. So that leads us right into the second pattern, separating data from identity. I mean, what happens when you make a great bet and it still goes wrong? This is where winners really pull away from the pack. They treat that outcome as pure feedback, not as some kind of judgment on who they are.
This is so crucial. Think about it. The second you take a loss personally, your ego gets bruised, and your brain just shuts down the learning process. You get defensive, right? But when a loss is just a data point, well, then you can look at it objectively and figure out how to improve your strategy for the next time. And it's that kind of objectivity that unlocks the third and maybe the most critical pattern of all: prioritizing the long game. Elite performers get that they're not playing a one-and-done game. It has many rounds. So they are totally willing to take short-term hits and ignore all the noise, because their focus is on protecting their ability to stay in the game and let their strategic advantages compound over time. All right, so that's the theory. But what does this actually look like out in the wild? How does this mindset change what you do in those high-stakes moments where most people just let their emotions run the show? Just take a look at this breakdown. It's so clear. You're launching a startup. The emotional reaction is, "We failed." It's an identity statement. The probabilistic action is, the market data says we need to pivot. See? It's a strategic adjustment. Or a negotiation. Emotion screams, "I can't lose this point." Your ego is all tied up in it. But probabilistic thinking calmly goes, "You know what? This point isn't actually that valuable," and gives it up to win something much bigger later on. That's the difference between just reacting and actually strategizing. So, what's the flip side? What happens to people who just can't make this mental shift? What is the real cost of operating from that emotional, outcome-first mindset? Well, the cost is immense. You end up becoming mentally fragile because your entire self-worth is riding on every single outcome. You start to avoid the very risks you need to take to grow, all because you're terrified of that feeling of failure. And ultimately, you end up sacrificing massive long-term potential for the tiny, short-lived comfort of avoiding discomfort today. It is quite literally the formula for mediocrity. And this brings us to the edge. The real power of this mindset is that it gives you this profound competitive advantage because it systematically reframes the very things that sabotage everybody else: pressure, loss, and even identity itself. To a high performer, pressure isn't a threat to be avoided. It's a signal.
It's just information telling them, hey, the stakes are high, it's time to get even more focused on the process. So that feeling of pressure actually triggers focus, not fear.
A loss gets completely transformed. It's no longer this painful, personal failure. It just becomes a valuable, totally neutral data point. It's new information that you can use to make your mental model of the world a little bit better. You're basically paying for data that makes you smarter for the next bet.
And this might be the most powerful shift of all. Your identity gets completely re-anchored. You are no longer a winner or a loser. Your identity is that of a person who runs a high-quality decision-making process. And that creates an unbelievable amount of resilience. It protects you from the emotional roller coaster of wins and losses.
Okay, so let's bring this all home. How do we actually apply this? Let's end with a quick mental audit. Just 3 sharp questions to take a look at your own internal operating system. So first, think about this honestly. In your career, in your life, where are you playing it safe? Where is the fear of just feeling bad for a little while holding you back from making a bet that, on paper, makes perfect sense?
Question 2. When you hit a setback, what is your immediate gut reaction? Is it shame, defensiveness, or is it a kind of detached curiosity, a desire to figure out what happened and what you can learn from it for next time?
And finally, the big one. What game are you really playing? Are you playing the game of short-term emotional wins, trying to feel good and feel right in the moment? Or are you playing a much longer game, building a strategic edge that compounds over time, and you're willing to feel a little uncomfortable now for a much, much bigger payoff down the road? The game you choose to play will define the results you get.